One morning, Nand receives a message from Neelkanth. Nand, tomorrow at 10 a.m., come to this address. There's a finance conference I want you to attend. Next morning, Nand arrives at the conference hall. He sees investment experts, economists, bankers, and financial advisors. Neelkanth welcomes him and says, "Before we begin talking about investments, I'd like you to meet someone." A woman walks towards them. "Nand, this is Dr. Gargi, a psychologist who specializes in human decision-making." Nand looks confused. "Neelkanth, this is a finance conference. Why have you invited a psychology expert?" "Because markets don't make investment decisions. People do. And every financial decision begins in the human mind."
Gargi said, "People don't lose money only because they lack financial knowledge. They lose money because they panic during crashes, follow the crowd, become greedy in bull markets, and fear taking the right decisions. I'll teach you why your brain sometimes works against your wealth."
Nand said, "So if I understand my own behavior, I'll become a better investor?" Gargi said, "Welcome to the fascinating world of behavioral finance." After the conference ends, Neelkanth invites Nand and Gargi to a quiet roundtable in the lounge. The three of them take their seats. Nand said, "Neelkanth, I've always believed that earning more money was the key to becoming wealthy. Earning money is important, Nand, but keeping it and growing it is even more important. And that's where psychology comes in. Two people can earn the same income, yet one becomes wealthy while the other struggles. The difference is often not intelligence, it's behavior. Your biggest competitor is often your own mind, your emotions, habits, fears, and biases." She opens a notebook titled Behavioral Finance Concepts We'll Explore Together.
Nand, present bias means your brain values today's pleasure more than tomorrow's benefit.
So that's why I spend my salary now and postpone investing?
Exactly. Your mind says enjoy today while quietly ignoring your future financial needs.
That's why many people delay SIPs, skip emergency savings, and struggle to build wealth.
The first step to becoming wealthy is learning to choose your future self over your present impulse. Nand, delayed gratification is the ability to give up a small reward today for a much bigger reward in the future.
So, investing instead of spending is an example of delayed gratification?
Exactly. People who patiently invest and stay disciplined often build far more wealth than those who seek instant pleasure.
That's why successful investors focus on long-term compounding instead of short-term excitement.
The more you train yourself to wait for bigger rewards, the stronger your financial future becomes. Gargi, loss aversion means the pain of losing 1,000 rupees usually feels stronger than the joy of gaining 1,000 rupees.
Is that why I panic and sell my investments when the market falls?
Exactly. Fear of loss often makes people abandon good long-term investments too early.
Successful investors understand that temporary losses are part of the journey, not the end of it.
When you let fear control your decisions, you lock in losses instead of giving your investments time to recover.
Nand, overconfidence bias is believing you're more skilled or knowledgeable than you actually are. So, making one profitable investment doesn't mean I've mastered the stock market? Exactly. A few successes can make people take bigger risks without proper research. The best investors stay humble, keep learning, and never assume they can't make mistakes. Confidence helps you invest, but overconfidence can make you ignore risks and lose wealth.
Nand, confirmation bias is the tendency to look only for information that supports what you already believe.
So, if I buy a stock and only watch videos saying it will go up, that's confirmation bias?
Exactly. Ignoring negative facts can lead to poor financial decisions. A wise investor studies both the reasons to invest and the reasons not to invest. The strongest decisions come from seeking the truth, not just the information that makes you feel right.
Nand, anchoring bias is when your mind relies too heavily on the first piece of information it receives. So if a shirt says 5,000 rupees and is discounted to 2,500 rupees, I think it's a great deal just because of the original price? Exactly. Your brain gets anchored to the first number, even if it doesn't reflect the item's true value. Smart financial decisions are based on actual value, not the first number you see. Always ask, what is it really worth, instead of letting the first price make the decision for you.
Nand, availability bias is when your brain judges a situation based on the information that is easiest to remember. So, if I hear constant news about a market crash, I start believing investing is always risky? Exactly. Recent headlines and memorable events can make rare situations seem more common than they really are. Wise investors make decisions using facts, long-term data, and research, not just the latest news. Never let the loudest story in your mind become the only basis for your financial decisions. Nand, herd mentality is the tendency to follow the crowd without thinking independently.
So, if everyone is buying a stock and I buy it without doing any research, that's herd mentality.
Exactly. People often assume the crowd must be right, even when the crowd is acting on emotion. Successful investors don't follow the crowd. They follow facts, valuation, and a disciplined strategy. Before following others, ask yourself, am I investing because I understand it or simply because everyone else is?
Gargi, FOMO, fear of missing out, is the fear that others are making money while you're being left behind.
So when I rush to buy a stock because everyone says it's going up, that's FOMO?
Exactly. FOMO pushes people to invest based on excitement instead of careful analysis. The best opportunities don't come from chasing the crowd. They come from patience, research, and discipline. Remember, missing a bad investment is far better than joining it just because everyone else did. Nand, recency bias is when your brain gives too much importance to recent events and assumes they will continue.
So, if the stock market has been rising for a few months, I start believing it will always go up?
Exactly. Recent experiences can make you ignore history and long-term market cycles. Successful investors make decisions based on long-term fundamentals, not just recent performance. Never assume that what happened yesterday will definitely happen tomorrow. Gargi, hindsight bias is believing that after an event happens, you knew it all along, even though you didn't predict it beforehand. So when I say, I knew the market would rise after seeing it happen, that's hindsight bias? Exactly. Your brain rewrites your memory, making past events seem more predictable than they really were. Wise investors learn from the past, but they don't fool themselves into believing the future is always obvious. Remember, claiming I knew it doesn't improve your next decision. Honest reflection does. Nand, sunk cost fallacy is the mistake of continuing with a bad financial decision just because you've already invested time, money, or effort into it.
So, if I keep holding a poor performing stock only because I've already lost money on it, that's the sunk cost fallacy?
Exactly. The money you've already lost is gone, and it shouldn't decide what you do next. Wise investors make decisions based on future potential, not on past costs they cannot recover. Always ask, if I didn't own this investment today, would I still buy it? If the answer is no, don't let the past trap your future. Gargi, endowment effect is our tendency to value something more simply because we own it. So, I think my stock is better than it really is just because it's in my portfolio. Exactly. Ownership creates an emotional attachment that can cloud your judgment. Successful investors evaluate every investment objectively, whether they own it or not. Remember, an investment's true value comes from its future potential, not from the fact that it belongs to you. Nand, mental accounting is when people treat money differently depending on where it comes from, even though every rupee has the same value. So, if I carefully save my salary but spend my bonus carelessly, that's mental accounting. Exactly. Your brain creates separate money buckets, leading to inconsistent financial decisions. Whether it's salary, a bonus, a gift, or investment profits, every rupee should be managed with the same discipline.
Money has no memory of its source. Only your decisions determine whether it builds wealth or disappears. Nand, framing effect means the way information is presented can influence your decision, even when the facts are the same. So, if a product says 20% off instead of pay 80% of the price, I feel like I'm getting a better deal. Exactly. Different wording or presentation can change your perception without changing the actual value. Smart financial decisions are based on the facts, not on how those facts are packaged. Before making any money decision, look beyond the presentation and ask what is the real cost and the real benefit.
Nand, status quo bias is the tendency to keep things the way they are, even when a better option exists.
So, if I avoid reviewing my investments just because changing them feels uncomfortable, that's status quo bias?
Exactly. People often prefer doing nothing because change feels uncertain, even when it could improve their financial future. Good investors regularly review their financial plans and make changes when the facts support them. Don't stay with a decision just because it's familiar. Stay with it only if it's still the right decision.
Nand, choice overload happens when having too many options makes it harder to make a decision.
So if I see hundreds of mutual funds and end up investing in none of them, that's choice overload?
Exactly. Too many choices can create confusion, delay, and even decision paralysis.
Successful investors simplify their choices by setting clear goals and selecting investments that match their plan.
Remember, making a well-researched decision is usually better than endlessly comparing options and never getting started. Nand, decision fatigue happens when making too many decisions drains your mental energy, causing poorer choices later. So after a long day of work, I'm more likely to spend impulsively or ignore my budget? Exactly. A tired mind prefers the easiest option, not always the smartest one. That's why successful people automate good financial habits like SIPs and bill payments to reduce unnecessary decisions. Protect your mental energy. Important financial decisions deserve a fresh and focused mind.
Nand, emotional spending is buying things to cope with emotions like stress, sadness, boredom, or even excitement rather than out of real need. So, if I shop online after a stressful day just to feel better, that's emotional spending? Exactly. The purchase may improve your mood for a short time, but the financial impact often lasts much longer. Successful investors and savers don't let temporary emotions control permanent financial decisions. Before buying anything, ask yourself, am I solving a problem or just trying to change how I feel? Nand, social comparison is the habit of measuring your financial success against other people's lives.
So, if I buy an expensive car just because my neighbor bought one, that's social comparison?
Exactly. Comparing yourself to others can lead to unnecessary spending and poor financial decisions. True wealth is built by following your own financial goals, not by competing with someone else's lifestyle. Remember, compare your progress with your past, not your possessions with someone else's.
Nand, lifestyle inflation happens when your spending increases every time your income increases.
So if I get a salary hike and immediately upgrade my car, phone, and lifestyle instead of increasing my savings, that's lifestyle inflation.
Exactly. As income grows, many people improve their lifestyle but forget to improve their financial future. The smartest way to use a raise is to increase your investments before increasing your expenses. Earn more if you can, but let your wealth grow faster than your lifestyle.
Nand, scarcity mindset is the belief that there will never be enough money, opportunities, or resources, causing fear-driven decisions.
So, if I avoid investing because I'm afraid of losing even a small amount, that's a scarcity mindset?
Exactly. When fear of not having enough controls your thinking, you often miss opportunities to grow. Successful investors manage risks wisely, but they don't let fear stop them from building wealth. Think with confidence, not scarcity. Make decisions based on facts and a long-term plan, not on fear alone.
Nand,
Optimism bias is the tendency to believe that good things are more likely to happen to you than bad things.
So if I think nothing will happen to me, I don't need insurance or an emergency fund. That's optimism bias?
Exactly. Excessive optimism can make people underestimate risks and neglect financial protection. Hope for the best, but always prepare for the unexpected with savings, insurance, and a solid financial plan. Optimism inspires progress, but wise financial decisions balance hope with preparation.
Nand, pessimism bias is the tendency to expect the worst outcome, even when the facts don't support it.
So if I avoid investing because I'm convinced the market will always crash, that's pessimism bias?
Exactly. Excessive fear can make you miss valuable opportunities to grow your wealth over time.
Successful investors acknowledge risks, but they also recognize opportunities supported by research and long-term planning. Don't let fear decide your future. Let facts, discipline, and patience guide your financial decisions.
Nand, self-control is the ability to resist short-term temptations in order to achieve long-term financial goals.
So, choosing to invest my bonus instead of spending it on unnecessary shopping is self-control?
Exactly. Every disciplined financial choice today strengthens your future wealth. Successful investors aren't perfect. They consistently practice self-control, even when temptation is strong. Wealth is built one disciplined decision at a time, not one lucky investment at a time.
Nand, habit formation is the process of repeating small actions until they become automatic.
So, if I invest a fixed amount every month without skipping, I'm building a good financial habit?
Exactly. Small, consistent habits are more powerful than occasional big efforts.
Wealth isn't usually created by one great decision. It grows through disciplined habits practiced over many years.
Build habits that work for your future because your daily actions eventually become your financial destiny.
Nand, identity-based habits are built by focusing on who you want to become, not just what you want to achieve. So instead of saying, I want to save money, I should say, I am a disciplined saver. Exactly. When your habits match your identity, good financial decisions become natural. Successful investors don't just invest occasionally. They see themselves as long-term investors and act accordingly. Change your identity first and your habits will follow. Change your habits and your wealth will follow.
Nand, pain of paying is the discomfort you feel when parting with your money, especially when you pay in cash. So that's why spending cash feels harder than simply tapping my card or phone? Exactly. The less you feel the payment, the easier it becomes to spend without thinking. That's why it's important to track every expense, whether you pay with cash, a card, or a digital wallet. When you become more aware of every rupee you spend, you naturally make wiser financial decisions.
Nand, cashless spending effect is the tendency to spend more when using cards, UPI, or digital wallets because the payment doesn't feel as tangible as cash. So that's why I don't think twice before tapping my card, but I hesitate when paying the same amount in cash. Exactly. Digital payments reduce the feeling of parting with money, making overspending more likely. Cashless payments are convenient, but convenience should never replace budgeting and financial discipline. Whether you pay with cash or a phone, every rupee has the same value. Spend it with the same level of care. Nand, house money effect is the tendency to take bigger risks with money you've recently won or earned unexpectedly because it doesn't feel like your own hard-earned money.
So if I make a profit in the stock market and then gamble with that profit on risky investments, that's the house money effect?
Exactly. Your brain treats unexpected gains differently, even though they are now part of your wealth. Whether money comes from your salary, a bonus, or investment profits, it deserves the same careful management. The moment money becomes yours, protect it with the same discipline as every rupee you worked hard to earn.
After hours of engaging discussions on investing psychology and financial behavior, Gargi glanced at the clock and smiled. Nand, it's already quite late. We've covered many important concepts today,
but there are still several fascinating ideas left to explore. Gargi nodded. The remaining concepts deserve the same careful discussion. Why don't we continue tomorrow at my office? It will be quieter, and I'll also show you some practical examples and case studies. She took out a small notepad, wrote down her office address, and handed it to Nand. Nand carefully folded the note and placed it in his wallet. Thank you, Gargi. I'll be there on time. I'm looking forward to learning the remaining concepts. Gargi smiled, waved goodbye, and walked out of the conference hall. Stay tuned. Nand and Gargi will return in the next video to continue their insightful discussion.